And today we're going to talk about chapters 4 to 5 in Okay for Now by Gary D. Schmidt. Gary D. Schmidt is also the Newbery Honor winning author of The Wednesday Wars, which is a companion book to this book. And let's start on Okay for Now. And it's a chapter 4. It's called The Black-Backed Gull. So, I wanted to ask you, if you have been, so Doug is right now trying to perfect art, right? The Puffins, but it's hard for him, because he can't really just get that foot underwater, which I guess it would be very hard. And if you had been Doug, how would you feel? And for people who've taken my classes before, you probably know this, but I just don't want you to say mad or sad. Maybe something more like use similes to describe it. For today, you'll need at least one metaphor and one simile to describe it. And also, I wanted to ask you, do you think that Doug is saying the word stupid too many times, or do you think that stupid does fit into everything? Okay, now I wanted to ask you about and now I wanted to ask you about Washington Irving Junior High School, right? And what I wanted to ask you about that was, all in all, why do you connect with Doug? Why do you think that kids connect with Doug so much? I think it's because of school, because some people do not like school. I personally, it's not like I love school, and every day I like it. I'm like, hooray for school! I'm not like that, but school's okay. I like it, And, so I also wanted to ask you about, all in all, how would you describe Doug's average school day? 1 to 10 on a scale, okay? On a 1 to 10, 1 is so horrible, it's as terrible as death. And 10 is like you got billions of dollars pouring in every second, okay? Like that. So even if you love the school, I'm pretty sure it will not be like billions of dollars pouring in every second. Even the person who likes school, the most will have an average of 9, about 8, okay? And I wanted to ask you, do you think that is Doug's fault for not paying attention in Coach Reed's PE class, or do you think that Coach Reed is just a so-called gym teacher and that he's just an idiot? I also wanted to ask you, you know how like Doug's brother, he said that it looked like the foot was underwater, right? And if you had been Doug and you heard that, how would you feel? Okay, now I wanted to ask you, about, the large-billed puffins, right? And we see that the large-billed puffins, they're gone, right? And if you had been Doug, because do you think that Doug Doug's has gotten to like the large-billed puffins now, even if they're not as graceful as the Arctic tern? Do you think that Doug sort of got used to the large-billed puffins and he was actually starting to become friends with them in a way? And suddenly they're gone. and it's replaced with the black-backed gull, and it's a bird, and it's dying, right? And when you saw, you probably have this. This is the picture, and I wanted to ask you, do you think that this, right, that this dying gull, if you had seen this, okay, and well, you have seen this, so I wanted to ask you, do you think that this picture is an amazing picture to capture everything like that? It's beautiful, or do you think that it's horrible and sad and you don't like it? And I wanted to ask you, do you think that Audubon should quit shooting birds out of the air? I think so, right? And also, I wanted to ask you about all the birds that are getting sold, right? Do you think that this is something? Do you think that's right? Or do you think that that is bad, and that all the books and all the pictures should be together? And there are two sides. Some people might say that they belong in the book they came into, right? But at the same time, think about it. You could always do something else, like, for example, maybe. Oh, sorry, why am I? Okay, so okay, redo. So you could, say that they belong in one book, or it might be Audubon's pictures. Maybe you might think that they're for enjoying, and they should be, and people should enjoy them, not in just one book, but like all over the country, because that's what art is about. It isn't just being about in a book, and that's actually a valid point. Both points are very valid. And so, that's a good debate that you can do anytime. So I advise you maybe to do it let's say, do it with your family members or your friends. That's gonna be easy, and it's gonna be fun too. And, I also wanted to ask you about, do you think that, how Doug was mouthing off to Coach Reed? What do you think about this? Do you think that this was a fair, that Doug should have done this or not? And do you think that because Doug is ruining Coach Reed's schedule and all that, do you think that that Coach Reed does need to take Doug to the principal's office or not? Right? And I wanted to ask you, do you think that Principal Petey, if you had been Doug and you were with Principal Petey, would you have just looked Principal Petey in the eye, or would you have stared at that brown pelican? Maybe I would have just stared Principal Petey in the eye, because I don't want to get another day of detention. I don't want to get 1 day of detention, right? And I also wanted to ask you about, did you think that Jane Eyre is going to be terrible or not? What did you think? And now we see that Doug isn't as terrible as he thought, right? He thought so. And so we know that Doug cannot read, right? And do you think that Doug should learn how to read, or do you think that reading is a waste of time? I don't think that reading is a waste of time, but then again, I love reading and writing. Okay, because even though I'm in 4th grade, I've already passed 8th grade reading and writing. So, anyway, so let's keep on talking about the, how Mr. Ferris figured out something that no other teacher had, that Doug Swiatek could not read. And so I wanted to ask you, do you think that Mr. Ferris is, in all, 1 to 10, how would you rate Mr. Ferris as a teacher? I think it would be 10. He was the one who found out about this, Other teachers have just passed him along, ignored Doug. But actually, Mr. Ferris figured it out. Now Miss Cowper is going to help Doug, right? All in all, what did you think about this? What did you think about this change? And did you think, like when you were still reading, did you think that that Doug was going to succeed in all this? That Doug was going to succeed in reading or not? And so, I also wanted to ask you, like how Doug kept on saying, how come no one ever told me this stuff? And nobody ever did, right? And all in all, how do you think that the school years leading up to this, how do you think that the teachers were to Doug? I think that maybe they just thought like, it's like, oh, it's useless. It's always gonna be dumb. Why should I teach him? Or maybe they just didn't really realize it because they didn't really care, right? And maybe they just like the really smart kids, which is very unfair, right? And I also wanted to ask you, like soliloquized. Oh man, do you think that there should be a law about how people should not say soliloquized or a new servitude, right? And do you think that do you think that soliloquized is going to be a new and interesting way of speaking? Okay, I also wanted to ask you, when all the Saturday delivery customers saw Jane Eyre, they began to soften up to Doug. Why do you think that they began to soften up? Right? They do it a little, right? And I also wanted to ask you, do you think that if you happen Doug, you would have also babysit, or do you not want to do that? And also, I wanted to ask you, do you think that the first edition of Jane Eyre, do you think that's really a big deal or not? And well, I don't really think so. That's only my opinion. First editions are pretty rare and expensive. And also, I wanted to ask you about, do you think, I wanted to say, do you think that, Lil and Doug, their relationship's pretty close, right? And what do you think? How do you think that this? How do you think that this relationship? What do you think is leading up to? Okay, now I wanted to ask you. The thing is, somebody broke into Tools and More hardware store, right, in October. Who do you think is this mysterious robber? And do you think that Doug's brother did this or not? And I wanted to ask you, do you think that, I wanted to ask you, do you think that Lucas was like a good guy while being at home before he went to the Vietnam? And now that Lucas is coming back, what do you think that Doug is in for? Do you think that Doug is gonna get bullied and hurt again? What do you think is gonna happen? And I also wanted to ask you, I wanted to ask you, do you think that all these memories, do you think that Lucas, when he was a little kid, do you think that he was a bad kid, or do you think that he was just a normal kid? And if so, why do you think that Lucas suddenly, as he became older and older, why do you think that he became a little mean, right? Why do you think that he became like that? And who is in his house, in Doug's household, that is not the best role model? maybe Doug's dad. So do you think that Lucas learned, when he saw his dad, maybe he learned from his dad, even if it was not good learning? Do you think that's how he was brought up and that was why? And I also wanted to ask you about, do you think that, you know, like how Coach Reed, like he pulled and the stupid, and the gym shirt like ripped open and then everybody saw something. What did you think that they saw over here? And we're gonna learn that, but for right then, what did you think? And if you have been Doug, and even when we didn't know what was happening, we can relate, right, to how he was feeling. How do you think that Doug was feeling this time? Simile and two metaphors. And then suddenly, like, he began to run. He just went out, right? And then he ran. But then Mr. Ferris stopped him, right? And then suddenly we learned the story of his birthday. And Mr. Ferris was crying because of that, right? And I got a little choked up too about this. All in all, if you had been Doug, well, how would you have reacted to your dad? I would have wanted to punch him in the nose, but of course if I did that, smack, smack, smack. You know, so that wouldn't be the greatest thing. But still, do you think that his father, do you think that Doug really deserves his father? Do you think that any of the family members in Doug's household deserve Doug's mean father? And anyway, now we learn it's a tattoo with Mama's baby. Oh man. Oh my God. This is bad, right? Dire. Even I know, and I don't have a tattoo. And, okay, fine. Many people know this, and I'm not even Doug, and I already feel like so terrible. And so how do you think that Doug felt? I'm just reading this book. So Doug must have felt worse, right? And why do you think that Doug's father is such a jerk? Do you think that he was brought up badly? Why do you think? Or do you think it was just his father was born like that? You know, mean. And if you had been Doug and there was Mama's baby, right? Do you think that you would have, okay, so how should I put this? Oh yes, I wanted to ask you, if you had been Doug, do you think that you would have just quit school or just run away or something like that? And do you think that if you had been Doug, you would have been able to even stand your father, or do you think that you would just bolt for the door with a backpack, and in the backpack you could like have some clothes, like extra pair of clothes and a hoodie, maybe like your canteen or some water bottles, get some food like fruits and stuff like that, and then your money in there, and then maybe a few books or some important things like Joe Pepitone's jacket. I mean, was it Joe Pepitone's or was it yeah, it was Joe Pepitone's jacket, right? Okay, I'm gonna have to check. I think it was, but maybe it was Horace. Okay, I'm getting really, okay, oh yes, Joe Pepitone's jacket, right? And he could just run away. Do you think that's a good plan or not? Okay, now we're going to go to chapter 5, and yeah, okay, so let's start. Do you think that fighting is a good, healthy thing to relieve your anger and stress, or do you think it's a bad thing? And you know how like Doug is working harder at school. Do you think that in life at school is going up, or is it still going down because of the mama's baby incident? And I also wanted to ask you, do you think you know about the annual Ballard Paper Mill Harvest Time Employee Picnic, which is a very long name in my opinion? You know, like how there was this trivia contest, but all in all, how would you describe this festival? It was better than I thought. And for describing, I wanted to do two similes and two metaphors. Okay, for simile, I would do, it was as good as ice cream. And I'm just gonna do one of each. And then for metaphor, it was a flower in bloom. Okay? I thought of that because I actually planted some bulbs and in a pot, and now they're like this tall, and they have like beautiful white flowers. And also, I wanted to ask you, do you think that this festival, do you think that this is this festival, and that Mr. Ballard, do you think that he actually is a bad guy, or do you think that Doug's father is the bad guy here? And then I wanted to ask you about the old man. How would you describe the old man? And also, you know, now there was these questions, right? And if you had been Doug, would you have willingly participated, or would you have just participated for the fun of beating your dad? What would you have done for both? And now I wanted to ask you, were you surprised that the old man was Mr. Ballard? And now we know Mr. Ballard, right? And do you think that Mr. Ballard is a good guy or a bad guy now? He's a great guy, right? And then, like, if you had been Doug's father, right? It was a pretty quiet ride home. And do you think that Doug's father, what do you think the revenge would be in, or something like that? And also, do you think there will be any revenge? And also, I wanted to ask you, you know how he went inside, right? Doug went to the Ballard paper mill, and we found out that Doug's father just took the money, took the baseball, without even telling Doug. Okay, now I hate Doug's father so much, and I might say lots of bad things about him. He's mean and blah, blah, blah. And right after this, I hate Doug's father. He's a terrible man. Yeah, I gotta admit it, he's terrible. And for people who are denying that, another good debate. But I'm pretty sure everybody would think that he's terrible. But for people who don't, then that'll be a good debate, okay? Now let's keep on. So they were playing with horseshoes, right? Like this playing of horseshoes. How do you think that this calmed Doug, and why? And why do you think that this calmed Doug? And also, Doug said that he wanted that, you know, picture, that painting by Audubon, right? Because Mr. Ballard had bought it. He wanted it back in the book. Do you think that even when you were reading that Doug sort of sounded like a jerk? You had to admit that. A little, barely, but I think that it was the better thing to do, right? And Mr. Ballard, great guy, he said that yes, that it should belong in the book, right? And so I wanted to ask you, when when Doug placed that picture there, what do you think? How do you think that made his self-esteem skyrocket? Why? How? And do you think, you know how like at dinner, like the conversation between his father and Doug, it wasn't very pretty, right? His father like tried to hit him and he ran, right? And do you think that Doug was the person who caused this and Doug should be blamed? Or do you think that his father was the person to blame? And who do you think really started the fight though? His father or Doug? And also I wanted to ask you, do you think that, did you ever think of what happened to Doug's brother? Which we don't, Doug's brother, did you really think of that? What happened to Doug's brother when he was gone? And do you think that's a little unfair that Doug did that to his brother? Or do you think that it wasn't Doug's fault and that it was completely his father's fault? And then it turns out that his brother got the baseball, right? And his brother was also crying. He wiped his eyes, right? Like he was like, and that was very sad. And yeah, because I don't think that Doug's brother is the kind of person who cries, right? And I also wanted to ask you, the baseball, right? And do you think that the relationship between Doug and his brother is going to strengthen or not? And anyway, also, so together they went, Lil and Doug, they went to the horseshoe place, right? And to the paper mill, and then so Lil tried to do one, right? But it like went up and up and up, and Lil screamed, and Doug, protected her, right? Even though it fell far away from them. And then when they were finishing, Doug kissed Lil, okay? And so now we know how it's leading up to, right? What it's leading up to. How do you think that this was like a turning point in their relationship? And I also wanted to ask you, do you think that Lil and Doug, do you think that they will ever, I wanted to ask you, when you remember to the first time Lil met Doug was sort of a jerk, right? And Lil called him a skinny thug. How do you think that the relationship progressed? And to do this, maybe I wanted to and another challenge I'll give you is, do you think that Marysville isn't stupid Marysville anymore, and it's just Marysville, not stupid Marysville, or not? Well, guys, yeah, we are officially done for today. So I hope that you really enjoyed these chapters. And I got a few last questions. I ask these all the time, so you probably know them, but if you don't, they are, what's your favorite part in the chapters that we reviewed, chapters 4 and 5? And what's your favorite part so far in the whole book? Because it might have changed the favorite part. Also the favorite character. It always changes, right? Because at first, Lucas's brother was, not Lucas's brother, but, I guess it is Lucas's brother, but Doug's brother, right? Lucas is Doug's brother, but anyway, and so, I wanted to ask you, how Doug's brother, he changed, so, characters change all the time. So what's your favorite character and your least favorite character? And what do you predict is going to happen next to Doug? I mean, with Lucas and Lil, and how do you think that Doug is going with drawing? What about Coach Reed? And what about Principal Petey? And do you think that Doug will be able to accomplish his mission? And what about the babysitting about Doug? How do you think that's gonna go? Okay. And finally, how do you like the book so far? It's always fun to monitor the book, you know? One time I hated a book at first. I was like, oh, I'm gonna die reading this book. And by the end, one of my all-time favorite books, like it was in my top 10 list. Okay, so guys, we're finished, and I hope that you really enjoyed. Okay, for now, chapters 4 to 5. We're gonna keep on reading and just have a great, amazing time. Rest of your day, or if it's not like it's right here, then have a great rest of your night. And people everywhere, keep on reading, okay? My motto, and just keep reading.